2025, and I've been doing more research into plasma and the structure of the universe. And today I'd like to go over some competing ideas about the material world and consciousness. Because I think it's super interesting, and there's some very fundamental questions a lot of people think we have the answer to, but I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we have the answer to it. So on this side we have consciousness, which we will represent with a spiral, and on this side we have material, which we will represent with a box. And so here's how we start. There are two competing ideas, and one idea is that in the material viewpoint, the universe is full of stuff, and enough of that stuff came together and formed together, and eventually you get awareness. So awareness, from this material viewpoint, awareness comes from putting enough stuff together in an organized way. And then in this viewpoint, all of the awareness comes together and creates the stuff. So we'll start on this side. So as far as evolutionists are concerned and all those other things, if eventually you squish enough material together and there is awareness of the self, and that is the definition of consciousness. Which this viewpoint has a clear endpoint. So I don't prefer this viewpoint. I also don't think it encapsulates the reality in entirety. And then in this viewpoint, we have everything that you see is a figment of a thought, of imagination. So basically everything from within consciousness, which here on this side, consciousness is defined as energy, propagating the movement of information. Now, if you watched the previous video, then you know and understand that information does not have an atom. It doesn't have a weight, it doesn't have a density. It's the only thing that can move faster than the speed of light. This viewpoint, I think, is also interesting, but I don't think either extremes are correct. I definitely see how both points can be argued to and have multiple instances of observation that would lead you to those extreme conclusions, but from where I'm standing, it appears as though, here's some interesting questions. So one way that I can think about this is that there is some stuff, just a little bit of stuff, and that there is consciousness and conscious awareness, and that conscious awareness gives form to the stuff. So the consciousness, the thinking, the information informs the material to create form. I like this idea that the material world exists. Okay, so here's why. If you're walking, scientists or observers can observe something they weren't expecting, which makes me think that the material is real. Because if it's all consciousness and it's all information, then you would only find that which you expect to find. And it also happens very often that you don't find what you expect to find. And so that's my thinking as to why it's not all 100%. The world, the reality that we experience is 100% formed by just consciousness or the energy of information in motion. And it's hard for me to justify the material perspective 100% because we do find very immaterial. So this material perspective is what would lead you to think that you don't have a soul, that you don't have, that there's no information that exists within you outside of what you're already experiencing within this lifetime or within the genetics of the lifetimes of people before you. And we just see too many experiences outside of this material viewpoint to make it make any sense. And we can talk to the ends of time about the experiences that don't match up with this everything is just material viewpoint. And one of the things, even if you're looking within this framework, given that 99.9 or more percent of material in the world is plasma, and that plasma transmits information faster than the speed of light. And the main things we study are solid, liquid, and gas. And this is where most of the material thinking comes from. The material thinking doesn't actually explore plasma. We run into a lot of issues and like mental fallacies when it comes to this. Like the thought that there's a big bang, just seems absolutely outrageous to me. It makes sense, but it also seems a little outrageous. And I'm not really sure where to start to pick that apart exactly. It just intuitively feels kind of off. So that's one thing I've been kind of curious about is which came first, consciousness or material, since it appears to me that both are 100% in existence. It's like the chicken and the egg, but maybe both consciousness and material were formed at the same time, in which case the life that we are experiencing is the merging of the two, or the two coming together. In which case, heat death makes no sense as a concept or an idea either to me. Because heat death only makes sense if you're only looking at solid, liquid, gas. Heat death makes absolutely no sense if you're looking at consciousness. Because consciousness... Yeah, baby! Sorry, that's... Yeah, baby! Yeah, honey. So, yeah, heat death doesn't make any sense because consciousness and magnetic fields work together and they transport information together. And the consciousness and magnetic fields, I don't know if you've heard of, like, they say, like, an atom is made up mostly of space. Like, no, it's not. It's made up of consciousness. It's made up of magnetic fields. And it contains information and moves information. I don't know. There's just a lot of silly things that we take as true that just is not. Like, for example, the sun. Here's our sunshine, right? We're told that there's a ton of exploding reactions happening inside of the sun and that it's super incredibly hot and all this stuff, right? Well, actually, most of the heat, the hottest points around the sun is not the surface of the sun. Here's Earth. Mars actually used to be inside this bubble of heat. But as we've progressed through time, Mars has moved outside of this bubble and now Earth is in this bubble. So when they say a Goldilocks zone, what they're actually talking about is this heat belt around the sun. And as you get closer to the sun, it actually cools down. I think it's to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when you have a sunspot, those can cool to 3,000 degrees. And then as you travel into the sunspot, it gets cooler and cooler and cooler and cooler. So, like, what's happening with the sun? Because you'd think it'd get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, but that is not the case. So that's very strange. And like 3,000 and 4,000 degrees seem hot, but honestly, we make things hotter here on Earth. You know, to melt stuff and such. So, all that to say, we don't really understand the material world because we don't understand the plasmic world, which is the conscious world. And it might be that it's the two forming together. That feels most correct to me, although I don't have a good enough information to really share why. But anyhow, that's kind of what I was thinking about today and yesterday and the day before yesterday. Is who's correct here? Did material come first, or did consciousness come first, or were they both created at the same time? And do we understand enough about the fundamentals of how each of those was formed to move through our material world accordingly? So here's my thinking on how it all happened anyways. Because there is the nothing, there is the everything. And this gets into yin yang with there's a little bit of the nothing and the everything, and a little bit of the everything in the nothing. But if you're trying to go back and pinpoint an exact moment in time, the way that we experience time, as I'm kind of contemplating here, as the stance between the two, we get to experience ourselves as though we're moving forward in time. But it never has made a lot of sense to me that the time would be different over here than over here, just because of light traveling, because light is not the fastest. Information is the fastest. And so the information is being propagated across the universe unilaterally at the same time. Information has instantaneous speed. And so if that instantaneous speed is going both ways, across the universe, it doesn't make sense that we would be in a different time zone in this part of the universe than this part of the universe just because of how long it took the light to reach us. We're also taught that, I don't know about you, but when I was younger they told me like, yeah, space is empty. No, it is absolutely not empty, and we know that. It's filled to the brim with plasma. Every little bit of space is filled with plasma, and dark matter is just a different state of plasma. I don't know why they named it dark matter. It's like, just because you can't see it, but it's still a plasmic state, just like how there are 4 phases of water. And you are the 4th phase of water. Like, that you're plasmic water, and that plasmic water is one of the 4 phases that we know about of plasma. I'm sure plasma has a lot more states than that, considering it composes most of the universe, almost all of the universe. But there is the everything because there was the nothing. Seems to be the simplest way that I can wrap my mind around it. And so Cliff High's thinking in that we are all in the same eternal now makes sense to me. The whole time traveling thing seems outrageous to me, but because information does not seem to be destroyed, information does seem to be accumulated. It also makes sense to me that people would be able to connect with the information of the past and connect somewhat with the information of the future, depending on what futures are propagating out into the plasmic field from our intention, because we know that our intention builds focus, and that intention and that driving of focus places information into the field in somewhat of a geometric pattern. So I don't know, there's lots to think about here, but these are some things that I've been considering the past few days, and hopefully I will do some more research and be able to bring in some more fun facts and some more ponderings on all of this. But yeah, time travel seems to be silly. It doesn't, I think if you were to consider time travel, like there's an experiment that they've done quite a few experiments now where they've where what they're doing now affects the information in the past, and what they're doing now affects the information that comes through in the experiment in the future. And to me that makes sense, because that's information, that's placing information into the event stream this way, and sympathetically resonating with the information going this way. And so it seems magical if you're thinking about things from a purely materialist perspective, but it doesn't have to be magical. You know what I mean? Like, I know that It's important for societies to be able to control their people, to get everybody to move at once, think about things at once so that they manifest certain realities all at once. I don't know if they know that's what they're doing. But it's a function of reducing your ability to access your own light and your own power. And once you realize how much control you do have over your present moment and over the information coming forward into the event stream, life becomes a lot less victim mentality and a lot more empowering. So maybe just keep that in mind. Okay, those were some thoughts for today, and maybe we'll be back on later. Bye!